When Richard Chamberlain passed away in 2025, his former Maui estate sat empty for months, waiting for new owners. The oceanfront property, a stunning piece of architecture, had once been his dream home. But for reasons only known to him, Chamberlain had left it behind, moving back to Los Angeles long before his death. Locals whispered about the house, about the eerie silence that lingered in its corridors, about the strange lights that flickered in the windows at night. But no one dared to say it was haunted. Not yet. Then came Tom and Laura Wexler, a couple from San Francisco looking for a peaceful retreat. Tom was a retired tech executive, Laura a freelance writer. The house was perfect, isolated, surrounded by lush greenery, with breathtaking ocean views. They bought it without hesitation, unaware of the house's past. Their first few nights were idyllic. The sound of waves crashing against the shore lulled them to sleep, and the Hawaiian breeze carried the scent of salt and flowers through open windows. But then the noises started. At first it was subtle, a door creaking open in the middle of the night, the distant sound of footsteps in an empty hallway. Laura dismissed it. Old houses settle, after all. But Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One evening, as he sat on the terrace sipping wine, he swore he saw movement inside the house. A shadow, barely perceptible, shifting near the grand staircase. Then came the voices. Laura heard them first while she was alone in the study, researching a new article. A soft murmur, like someone speaking in the next room. She froze, listening. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the waves. It was inside the house. She turned off her laptop and stood up. "Tom?" she called. No response. She walked toward the hallway, her bare feet silent against the wooden floor. The murmuring stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. She peered into the living room, empty. The kitchen, empty. Then, as she turned back toward the study, she felt a presence, standing right behind her. The air turned cold. A shiver ran down her spine as she turned around, expecting to see Tom. But no one was there. That night, she told Tom everything. He hesitated, debating whether to tell her what he had seen. Instead, he reassured her it was just her imagination, a trick of the wind. But deep down, he knew something wasn't right. Then, one night, everything escalated. Tom woke up to the sound of music. Piano music. Soft, haunting notes echoing through the house. He turned to Laura. She was still asleep. Confused, he got out of bed and followed the sound, his heart pounding. It was coming from the sitting room. As he stepped inside, the music abruptly stopped. The piano, an old, beautiful grand piano that had come with the house, sat motionless, its keys untouched. The room was dark, illuminated only by the moonlight streaming through the windows. And yet, the scent of cologne lingered in the air, a fragrance that didn't belong to him or Laura. Tom turned to leave, but something caught his eye. A reflection in the glass window. A man standing behind him, dressed in a loose white shirt, his hair swept back, his face eerily familiar, Richard Chamberlain. Tom spun around, but the room was empty. The next morning, he told Laura they needed to leave. She didn't argue. They packed their bags, abandoning the house before the sun had fully risen. As they drove away, Laura glanced back one last time. And there, in the upstairs window, she swore she saw a figure watching them leave. The house remains empty to this day. The drive back to the airport was silent. Tom's knuckles were white against the steering wheel, his jaw locked in a tense line. Laura sat stiffly beside him, arms crossed, staring at the road ahead but seeing nothing. She hadn't spoken since they left the house, not really. Just murmured agreements, nods, vague acknowledgments of Tom's insistence that they had to go. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something pulling at her, keeping her thoughts tethered to that place. The house still clung to her, like the scent of the ocean on her skin, like the chill that had settled in her bones. Even now, even here, with the lights of Kahului in the distance, she felt it. She turned to Tom, searching for the words, for some way to say that she wasn't sure they should be leaving. He beat her to it. "We're not going back, Laura." His voice was firm, but something wavered beneath the surface. He wasn't just trying to convince her. He was convincing himself. She let the silence stretch between them. The road was dark, the rental car's headlights slicing through the night. The palms lining the highway swayed in the breeze, their rustling a whisper, almost a voice. She wasn't sure when it started, the faint static in the air, the distant murmur at the edge of her hearing. A low hum, just under the surface of the world, like the sound of someone waiting. Then, the radio crackled. Tom cursed, reaching for the dial, but before he could touch it, the speakers hissed, the static giving way to something else. Music. Familiar. Soft. The same delicate piano melody they had heard in the house. Laura's breath caught. Tom slammed the power button, but the music didn't stop. A single note lingered in the air, stretched and warped, like a record caught in an endless loop. Then, beneath it, a voice. Not a whisper, not a growl, just a single word, spoken with the weight of someone who had waited a long time to be heard. Stay. The car jerked to the side as Tom wrenched the wheel, his foot slamming on the brake. Gravel crunched beneath the tires as they skidded to a stop on the shoulder of the road. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The radio was silent. The car was silent. The world outside was silent. But the feeling hadn't left. The house had followed them. Laura turned to Tom, and for the first time that night, she saw real fear in his eyes. Not frustration. Not skepticism. Fear. And worse, somewhere deep inside, she felt it too. Maybe they had made a mistake. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. The rental car sat still on the shoulder of the road, its engine humming in uneasy silence. The headlights cast twin beams into the darkness, illuminating the narrow stretch of asphalt ahead. But beyond that, the world was ink black. No streetlights, no movement, only the distant crash of waves against the unseen shore. Inside the car, Tom's breath was uneven, short and sharp through his nose. His grip on the steering wheel was rigid, fingers curled too tightly, knuckles pale. Laura felt her own pulse hammering at her throat, the remnants of adrenaline pulsing through her veins. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The words still hung in the air between them, though it had never belonged there to begin with. Stay. A whisper, stretched through the distortion of the radio, shaped by something that wasn't supposed to speak. Laura swallowed, the dryness in her throat making it difficult. She could still hear it in her mind, like an afterimage burned into her memory. The voice had been calm, unhurried, not a plea, not a demand, a statement, as if it had already decided for them. Tom! She finally managed, her voice unsteady. He didn't look at her. His hands stayed fixed on the wheel, his eyes locked on the empty road ahead. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, he reached out and turned the key in the ignition. The engine died. The dashboard lights faded. The radio, now empty of sound, went dark. It was only then that he turned to her. We're going to a hotel. His voice was measured, like he was talking himself down from something. We'll sleep. We'll book an early flight. We'll be home before noon tomorrow. Laura didn't argue, not because she agreed, but because she wasn't sure she wanted to leave anymore. The hotel was in Wailea, a sleek, modern thing overlooking the ocean, far removed from the winding roads that led back to their house. By the time they checked in, the exhaustion had settled into their bones, heavy and thick. Neither of them had eaten since midday, but neither of them mentioned food. The room was cold, the air conditioning humming softly, a contrast to the humid night outside. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the black expanse of the Pacific, the tide moving in slow, methodical waves. Tom dropped his bag by the door, running a hand through his hair, his movements sharp with leftover tension. I need a shower, he muttered, disappearing into the bathroom. Laura stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself. Her reflection hovered in the glass, superimposed over the faint glow of the shoreline beyond. She should have been relieved to be here. Instead, she felt off. Not scared exactly. Something worse. Like she had left something unfinished. Her fingers itched, a restless energy crawling beneath her skin. She turned, glancing at her phone on the bedside table. She had no reason to look at it. No missed calls. No texts. No notifications. But still, she reached for it. When she pressed the power button, the screen blinked to life. For a split second, she saw something impossible. Not her lock screen. Not her home screen. The house. Not a photograph. Not an image from a website. A live feed. The front hallway, bathed in dim, golden light. Empty, but not silent. The piano music was playing again. Soft. Familiar. Notes pressing into the air like footsteps in a place she no longer stood. Then the screen flickered. The image shifted. She wasn't looking at the hallway anymore. She was looking at the upstairs window. The same window where she had seen him. And this time she knew. Someone was still there. Laura's breath hitched. The image on her phone wavered, the pixels shifting like static on an old television screen. She stared at the upstairs window, at the faint glow behind the glass, at the shape the shadow standing just beyond the curtain. It wasn't moving, but it was there. A slow, cold weight pressed against her chest, rooting her to the spot. She could hear the distant rush of the ocean outside, the hum of the air conditioner, the faint rush of the shower running in the next room. But all of it felt distant, irrelevant. The house was watching her, or waiting. She blinked. The screen went dark. Her lock screen returned the generic image of a beach she had set weeks ago, the time glowing in sharp white numerals. 2:13 a.m. A tremor ran down her fingers as she lowered the phone. She didn't move for a long time. The lights in the hotel room were warm, casting soft shadows against the crisp white linens, the modern furniture, the thick beige curtains that shielded the window. Everything here was supposed to feel safe, removed, but it wasn't. She was still there, wasn't she? Still in the house. Some part of her, at least. The thought unsettled her more than the image itself. A sharp knock on the bathroom door jolted her. Laura? Tom's voice was muffled by the running water. Can you grab my phone? I left it in my bag. She swallowed hard, shaking off the unease, trying to pull herself back to reality. Yeah, she called back, her voice steadier than she expected. Tom's bag sat half unzipped near the door. She crouched down, fingers fumbling with the fabric, pulling the zipper back. The scent of his cologne lingered on the clothes inside, familiar and grounding. Her hand brushed against the phone. She pulled it out, turned the screen on, and froze. It was open to the call log. A single outgoing call made just minutes ago. House landline, 2:07 a.m. Laura's pulse pounded in her ears. No, that wasn't possible. They had left the house hours ago. The landline was in the kitchen. She had seen it when they moved in, an old-fashioned rotary phone mounted on the wall. They had never used it, never even touched it. And yet, Tom had AL'd it. She turned sharply toward the bathroom door, her breath coming too fast. The shower was still running, the water hitting the tiles, the faint hiss of steam slipping from beneath the doorframe. Tom! Her voice was barely more than a whisper. No response. She stepped forward, hesitated, knocked once. The water kept running. A heavy, uneasy silence settled between each drop. Something wasn't right. She reached for the doorknob, twisted it, and the water stopped. Abrupt, sudden, like someone had been standing just behind the curtain, listening. A long moment passed. Then, a sound. Not the rush of water. Not the shifting of fabric. Not the familiar sigh of Tom drying off. Something else. Faint, rhythmic tapping. Coming from inside the bathroom. Coming from inside the mirror. Laura stumbled back. The phone slipped from her fingers, hitting the carpet with a muted thud. She didn't pick it up. She couldn't, because in the stillness, in the eerie hush that filled the room, she heard something else. Something she wasn't supposed to hear. The piano. Soft. Slow. Inside the hotel room, the piano music swelled, deep and deliberate, as if unseen hands pressed each key with careful precision. Laura's breath caught in her throat. Her pulse slammed against her ribs. She wasn't in the house. She wasn't anywhere near the house. And yet, the music was here. soft at first, notes trailing through the air, curling into the dim light of the hotel room. The melody was familiar, though she had never heard it before moving into the house. The kind of song that settled into memory without permission. A song that didn't belong here. The sound was coming from behind her. Slowly, painfully, she turned. The hotel room was unchanged. The bed was still made. The curtains still drawn. Tom's bag still lay half open near the door, her phone beside it, the screen dark. The lights were still on, warm and steady. But the air was different, thicker, colder. The kind of cold that seeped into the bones, that pressed against the skin with weight rather than temperature. And then, the curtains moved. Not from the air conditioning. Not from any draft. They billowed, as if something unseen had brushed against them. As if someone had passed by just out of sight. The music continued, unwavering, growing closer. Her breathing was too loud. Her thoughts were too fragmented, fraying at the edges. Then, the bathroom door creaked open. She snapped her head toward it, her entire body tensed. Steam curled out in slow, deliberate tendrils, thick and white, pooling into the cooler air. But Tom wasn't there. No movement, no sound. Just the mirror, fogged over, and the imprint of a handprint pressed into the glass. The fingers too long, the palm too thin, the shape smudged, as if whoever or whatever had left it had been waiting there for too long. A long, shuddering breath filled the space behind her. Not hers, not Tom's. Low, measured, like someone standing close enough to touch her. The piano music swelled, the notes stretching into something less like a melody and more like a warning. She didn't turn around. She didn't dare. She simply ran. Laura didn't remember flinging the hotel room door open. She didn't remember how she got down the hallway, her bare feet slapping against the cold tile. The world around her was a blur of dim lighting and the hushed silence of sleeping guests. She reached the elevator and slammed her palm against the button, her breath ragged, her heart hammering. The doors didn't open fast enough. Behind her, the hotel hall stretched out in eerie stillness. But she knew she wasn't alone. Somewhere beyond her vision, in the places just outside of what the human mind could comfortably register, something was watching. Waiting. The piano music was still playing. Not loud. Not intrusive, just a soft, patient presence beneath everything else. As if the house had followed her, slipping into the spaces between walls, between thoughts, between the real and the impossible. Then, the elevator dinged. The doors parted, revealing Tom. He stood in the center of the small space, still damp from the shower, dressed in sweatpants and a t-shirt. His brow furrowed when he saw her. Laura? His voice was hoarse, like he had just woken up. What the hell are you? His words died in his throat as he took her in her wide eyes, her shaking hands, the sheer terror carved into her features. He stepped forward, concern overtaking his confusion. What happened? She couldn't answer, couldn't explain the music, the breath in her ear, the way the hotel room hadn't felt like the hotel room anymore. She shook her head, a small, desperate movement. We need to go, she managed. Tom exhaled sharply, running a hand through his damp hair. Laura, we're already at a hotel. Where else are we supposed to? The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then, the entire hallway plunged into darkness. A heartbeat later, the emergency lights kicked in dim red glows from the floor, stretching their shadows into unnatural shapes. The silence around them thickened. The air was heavy now, charged. Something had followed them. Or maybe something had never left. Then came the sound. Not footsteps, not a voice. Tapping. Slow. Measured. From inside the elevator. Laura's breath caught. She didn't want to look. But she did. The mirrored interior of the elevator reflected Tom's figure. Her own. And someone standing behind them both. A man. Tall. Thin. Dressed in an unbuttoned white linen shirt. His gray-streaked hair swept back from a handsome, weathered face. Richard Chamberlain. His gaze was fixed on her. Not empty, not cruel, just watching, like he had been watching them since they stepped into his home, like he had been waiting for something. The elevator doors began to slide shut. Laura lunged forward, grabbing Tom's arm, yanking him away. They stumbled back just as the doors clanged shut, sealing Richard Chamberlain inside. The piano music stopped. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, the elevator hummed to life. The small digital display above the doors flickered. Going up. Laura and Tom stared. The buttons inside hadn't been touched. The top floor wasn't a guest floor. It was the penthouse. Unoccupied. The elevator climbed, floor by floor, until finally, ding, silence. The doors didn't open. They just waited. Then, ever so faintly, the sound of a piano playing again. Soft, distant, as if coming from another place entirely. The elevator doors slid open. There was no red-carpeted hallway beyond. No sterile lighting. Just the front hallway of their house. Warm, familiar, the golden glow of a single lamp. And in the sitting room, through the arched doorway, the black grand piano. His keys pressing down on their own. Tom and Laura never spoke about that night again. They left the island by sunrise. The house was put back on the market within days. But no one ever bought it. It still stands, empty and waiting, its windows glowing at night, its doors creaking open when no one is there. And if you stand outside long enough, in the humid hush of a Hawaiian evening, you might just hear the music playing. Soft, patient, calling someone home. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.